What's the meanest thing you've ever done to your brother?
My brother is way more terrified of snakes than I am. So one day, as I was outside, I found a snake skin in the yard, and I decided to hang it on his car and videotape him as he went out. And I enjoyed his reaction. I'm Kelsey, and this is my story. I would best describe my experience with the Lord as a consistent pursuit in love by Him. I accepted Jesus as my Savior when I was about 5 years old. We were just driving down the road, and apparently I was asking my parents spiritual questions, and I was just wondering about things, and I decided that I wanted to give my life to the Lord. So we just pulled over on the side of the road, and I gave my life to the Lord. And even not long after that, as a young child, I remember noticing the fruits of the Spirit working in my life. I remember being convicted of sins even as a child and repenting of those, and even sharing the gospel with some of my friends. But then as I got older, and especially into junior high age, I started to really doubt my salvation, and I started to worry about how much did I really understand when I gave my life to the Lord. Did I completely understand it enough to know what I was doing? And that really scared me, and I remember going into a really dark place and not really knowing how to deal with it. And so eventually told my parents about it. I remember being really frustrated with the Lord because it seemed like He was silent in a time where I really needed to hear Him. But looking back at it now, I realized that He placed people in my life and He spoke to me through those people, and I wasn't necessarily looking at it that way in the moment. But I remember a lady from my church mentoring me, and my mom and I would just go over to her house, and she would answer all my hard, deep theological questions. God also blessed me with Christian, godly parents who would pray with me every night, because I was also having, during this time, scary dreams that really bothered me. So really just continued to wrestle with this. And then I remember one day my mom just telling me, Kelsey, I look at salvation in a similar way as my marriage to your father. I didn't have to say specific words or even maybe completely understand what marriage is going to look like in order to technically be married to Him. And that's the same for your salvation. You didn't have to say specific words to allow you to be saved. So that kind of gave me a different perspective on my relationship with the Lord, on the salvation experience. So I wish I could say from that point on that it was super easy to believe I was going to heaven, that I was saved. But I continued to wrestle with it, and even into college, not knowing how I could be assured that I was saved. And I think through all of this, God was showing me that it's more about Him loving me and wanting a relationship with me than following the textbook Christian answers that I was trying to find for so long. Even actually this past semester, I remember I was sitting in the dorm hall just reading my Bible, and I came across Matthew 7:21 through 23, where it talks about the person who says to God, Lord, Lord, did I not prophesy in your name? Did I not cast out demons in your name, do all these wonders? And Jesus tells them to depart from Him because He never knew them. And that, you can imagine, with all my doubt of my salvation, that verse really scared me and had scared me in the past. So I just laid my Bible aside and I said, God, if I have a relationship with you, convict me of that. And if I don't, convict me of that. And I remember sitting in silence for a long time, and that kind of scared me that I wasn't getting an answer right away. But then it wasn't an audible voice, but somehow the Lord just told me, Kelsey, you are a child of mine, and I love you. That was just something I so desired to hear for so long. I remember just taking in this really really breath of air afterward, and it made me think of just all of the references in the Bible of the breath of life. And then I don't know how to explain it, but it felt like my heart was just bursting at the time. It was just really experiencing God's love, and it was just such an assurance of me being a child of Him. And I remember He brought to mind the verse Romans 10:9, which says, if you confess with your mouth Jesus as Lord and believe that God raised Him from the dead, you will be saved. And so God was showing me, Kelsey, you've done this, so you are saved and you are a child of mine. So through all of this, I look back and realize that you have to look at God for what the whole Bible tells you about Him. You can't just pinpoint one verse. And if you look at 2 Peter 3:9, it says that God desires all to be saved. And so I realized that he's not going to make salvation complicated. He desires a relationship with me, and I am created in a way that I desire one with him too. And so I've looked back at testimonies and testimony videos, and I think it's easy to compare yourself and your story to other people. And I realized that that's not how it should be at all. Each one of our testimonies is personal to us. Just like no husband and wife relationship should look the same as another couple's because it's intimate between the two of them. My relationship with the Lord is intimate between me and him, and so that should look different from others. So I look back at my testimony and just see how God continues to pursue me in love and show me that's what it's all about. And I'm so thankful that I serve a God that meets me where I'm at and has so gently yet constantly and consistently pursued me. This is the story of how Jesus has changed my life.
Has he changed yours?